Okay, ladies and gentlemen, come dive into the open minds where you can broaden your perspectives, expand your horizons, and open your eyes to a reality never thought possible. Just remember, once you open that door, there's no going back. Tonight's episode, I have my guest Matt Landman on the show, and we're here to talk about chemtrails, global warming, and his movie Frankenskies. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. It's nice to talk to someone like yourself.
Yeah, likewise. I found out jumping into this and like reaching out to people like you and other people that I've reached out to, how I was surprised at how welcoming you guys are to come on platforms like this and talk about it. I find it great. I find it interesting. Like we talked about before, I'm an avid listener of Coast to Coast. I just feel like when I listen to shows like that and other shows, I'm like screaming at the radio, like, ask them this, ask them that. Like, I want to know certain questions that don't get asked. And I feel like sometimes with certain shows, there's not enough time, or it's just, you know what I mean? It's their show, so it's their questioning and stuff, which is great. But I have my own questions. So I'm more than happy to have guys like you on the show.
I love it, and I feel the same way. And that's one reason why I don't listen to shows much, because they don't ask the things that I want to hear. And also that's one reason why I like going on original shows like you with like a nice open mind, because it's it's kind of annoying to have the same exact questions open I mean, like the same exact things every single time. It's like, people, how many times can I get asked like, um but why would they spray themselves? You know how many times I've heard that one question, bro? Like thousands of times. Why would they spray
Wow.
themselves? And
Right.
now I like laugh at people, and then like, what? And I'm like, yeah. But I've got an answer to anything that you want to talk about. But can I ask you a couple questions? Do you mind?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
How long have you had the show for?
This will be episode 21, so I've been running it for a little
Cool.
bit over a year. I don't
That's
really,
awesome.
I don't have like a time frame on like, oh, I'm shooting every weekend. It's really just as guests come. So
No, that's great. That's a lucky number. I love it. And that's you told me earlier that you grew up in Sac, and that's cool. I I always wanted to come to California, and then I did for film school. So it's like when you're growing up, they tell you gotta like in-state tuition and like the colleges and all this, and the college game is such a racket, anyways. But the whole thing on the like I had on this pedestal, like, oh, if I could just go to California, I could go to film school, you know what I mean? And then actually I did end up coming to California, and I went to Humboldt State University up in Northern California, and I
mhm.
went to grad school, and I got a master's in business because I had to keep getting student loans because I already went to business school, so I went to business school some more. But while I was doing the master's in business, I basically minored in film, and then I was able to make Frankenstein. So I did end up going to California Film School in the end. So
That's awesome. Congratulations on your master's too. So
yeah, thanks. So what I'm saying is I always wanted to be a Californian like yourself. I'm just saying, not really, like I love the East Coast and where I came from, but it was always this thing about the film, like everything else was just so glorified out here. It's not really like it is on the postcards, bro. But yeah, it's wild, the California like the vision. Now I'm in Oregon. I'm like right on the California border, and I've done the California thing, and I'm like, it's not even. I'm not, whatever. I've been all over the place. So how you said you went on a tour right now? What was your favorite city?
I had three of them. It was probably Colorado and then Fort Worth. And then the last one, San Antonio, was probably the best show that we had. So it was kind of cool
Uh,
that it went out with a bang. So
that's really cool. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I'm not gonna keep asking you questions. I just was
you're
curious.
good. You're good.
Yeah, nice. Oh, and how were the chemtrails when you were traveling around? Were there
They
any
were
chemtrail free cities?
everywhere. Nope, nope. They were
Yeah.
everywhere. They were
Tis the
everywhere.
season. Tis the season. Tis the season.
Separate, actually, we did go through New Mexico. I didn't notice any there, but every other
Nice.
stop we did. So
It's hard for them to get it to stick in the dry desert air. I lived in Sedona, Arizona, which is
mhm.
basically like living in, somewhere in New Mexico. And when they spray, they really got to work at it to get it to do its thing. It's not like working with some moisture in the, when the clouds are coming by or on the coast or something like that. It's that you really got to work it in the desert, but they do it. I noticed that over the summer there weren't as many chemtrails, and I was like analyzing it, and I think it's because they wanted people healthy and happy. And then over the winter, they really spray and get people, you know, basically they bog down their immune systems with heavy metals and all this nonsense and everything. And then people get sick. And then they're like, oh, see, you're sick for these other reasons, but I think it's chemtrails and all these other things, and 5G. You know, there's all this other
How
stuff
how did
rolling
you
out.
how did you fall into this stuff?
So I I went to Virginia Tech because I was growing up in Virginia, just on the other side of the river from DC. And then when there's just one random semester where there was just like I kind of was in a little trouble at school. I mean, it's just like they let you loose when you're 18 years old, bro, and the parents are like, "Oh, go on to college." They have no idea what you're getting your what's going. Anyways, after like a year in school, I was like, I'm gonna take a semester off and go home, go back home and get myself out of trouble for a minute. And that's when 9/11 happened. And
Mm,
so I was like I grew up right next to Dulles Airport where the planes took off and supposedly crashed in the Pentagon, you know, whatever, which didn't really happen. But so I was
mm-hmm.
right there. And also my girlfriend went to Pace University. My first love was this girl, Christina Milagros Pagan. She's this Puerto Rican girl from the Bronx. She went back to New York to go to school. Pace University. You're in the dorms and you like look out and the Twin Towers like right there.
Oh
So I
wow.
couldn't talk to her all day. I was freaked out. And I was like emotionally involved, just like everybody else on earth, but I was like really emotionally involved. And geez, I guess a couple of years later, somebody got that movie Zeitgeist and Loose Change in front of me. Loose Change, Dylan Avery, I ended up becoming friends with him. He's from Virginia. And
Oh
so
wow.
two documentaries opened my mind. And then slowly but surely, to answer your question, after I got out of school in Humboldt, I was working on a farm and I witnessed weather engineering like straight up. They were making drought. Like, you know, in SAC, there's drought like crazy, and everyone just scratches their head and is like, oh, California's in a drought. Yeah. It's like, no, they're engineering the drought, you know?
Mm-hmm. Big
So,
business.
yeah, it's huge. Ag and all of it. I mean, so much. So, I was in working on an organic like squash and potato farm. After I got the MBA, I got out of school and I got another job. It was like my 45th job, bro. It's crazy. I've had like so many jobs and I realized I don't have to work anymore. I'm so effing happy that I don't have to work anymore because I have a business making EMF protection clothing. And finally, it's coming together that I'm realizing this is all I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life and more activism stuff. So it's like I'm
Mm,
going to answer to nobody but God. So that's really
I
cool.
like that. I fucking
Yeah,
like
I'm
that, dude.
stoked on it. So I was working on a farm sorry, I got out of school with an MBA and I got a job with the MBA working as a finance analyst at this silver and gold company. And it was great for a minute. And then I realized it was another nightmare, you know, like I was like, everything's cool until winter hits and you're getting out of work at 5 p.m.
Mm,
and it's dark out. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
you're like, dang, this is like what I was like working all hard for. Like, cause you end up realizing when the seasons click, you're like a slave. You realize you start for me. And so that's why I've had 45 jobs. I'm like, I'm out of here. You know, because I don't answer to anybody really. And that's what the activist mentality or whatever. It's just,
Mm,
you know, and so I ended up leaving this good office job and got a job on a farm making like a fraction of the money, but getting really grounded and learning so much. And my first day on the farm, I literally learned like that I knew nothing, even though I thought I knew everything. I learned the first day on the farm, bro, that potatoes in the like I didn't know, dude. I didn't know shit, right? I thought I
uh,
knew so much. I was like kind of like this suburb kind of city kid from like this little kind of ghetto, kind of like like it wasn't really hood, but we did have like drive-bys and like stuff. Like it was a little ghetto, but not too bad. And then I grew up, you know, like scrawny white kid in kind of a black neighborhood. And so I kind of had to like, anyways, that's a longer story. So sorry. I thought I knew everything, right? You think you know everything coming from wherever your upbringing is. And me coming from where I came from and then like leaving it and like moving to LA and then I lived in San Diego and then I got my master's degree. I graduated top of my class with my master's degree because I was like, I'm really gonna do it this time. I thought I knew effing everything, right? And
mm.
the first day on the farm, bro, I'm like, oh, they're planting potatoes, right? And I'm like, oh, what are the seeds for the potatoes? Like, what are potato seeds? And they're like, and they're like, they're potatoes, bro, like straight up
Yeah.
potatoes. And you're from Sac. You probably knew that because you're surrounded by farms, bro. I wasn't surrounded by farms. I grew up around concrete and forests and stuff. I mean, like, I'm like, and I'm ignorant. And literally, bro, literally, like all the stuff that I didn't know, like I thought there was like 3 types of potatoes, bro. Like no more than 3. No, like there's no way that I knew that there was like hundreds and like the apples and everything, like varieties of food. Like there's all these things that start to open your mind, and you're like, whoa, I knew nothing.
Mhm.
And then it's like, well, why do I know nothing about these things that should be known? And why did I
Mm.
not know that the potato was trying to grow in my pantry, bro? Like I could have put it in a pot of soil and started growing potatoes, but no one would have.
Yourself.
Yeah, no one wants me to know that because that's the beginning of self-sufficiency and the beginning of passing things on. I was talking to a 10-year-old once, and we were saving our seeds from like a squash.
Mhm.
And she was like, why are you doing that? And I was like, because we can plant these. And she was like, no, you can't. And it's like the seeds from the squash in the store.
Mhm.
And she's like, no, you got to buy the squash in the store. That's how you get it. And I'm like, no, you can plant it in the ground and grow more. And she's like, no, ha 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 ha. No, you throw those in the trash, like a 10-year-old.
Mhm.
So, and I'm like a grown man thinking the same thing almost, considering the potatoes. I had no idea that they were that. So my first day on the farm, I started getting really grounded. And it was like this divine timing where I was talking to my friend back home. Because for a while, I did have these close homies from back home that I grew up with. Slowly but surely, we drifted away because I made the movie Frankenstein, and I started talking about even deeper conspiracies. And then when the whole narrative in the past couple of years, it really furthered the divide between my old world and my new truther Matt that doesn't like I mean I'm not gonna bow to any lies like everybody
Mhm.
else, and it's just like I honor the truth with integrity is how I
Mm.
feel, and then that's it. So anyways, when I did have these really close friends, my best friend growing up, talking to him on the phone, I was like, man, all my friends in this college town are young. They don't even know about 9/11, bro. It's my homie Lorenzo. And he was like, yeah, I cut him some slack, bro. These 21-year-olds, they weren't even born then, basically, right? They were hardly even alive when 9/11 happened. They have no reference point. They look it up on the internet. They see both sides of the story. And it's like, you can't really blame them necessarily for why do they even have any motivation to like dig into the whole 9/11 story? They don't really in their normal lives, work in their whatevers, they don't need to dig into 9/11. Like they have no
Mhm.
reason to. And if they did, they would find 2 sides of the story, and they might even be shamed for being a conspiracy theorist. And they'd
Mm.
it's easy to back out of it, right? Right.
Especially in Humboldt.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is.
Mm.
It and they're surprisingly very liberal there, and not as open-minded as you would think.
Right.
So
That's what I'm saying.
um yeah, I mean, at first I thought maybe you're being sarcastic, but you
No, yeah, I
you
know.
do know, and they're
I
all
mean,
masked up
I feel
right now
like
too.
college in general. I got a buddy that goes to Humboldt State right now, so
Mm.
I think
Oh, okay.
college in general is like super liberal and close
Mm.
minded, like to the
Mm.
agenda of college. So
Unreal, yeah. And
yeah.
I mean, if you just think about what you're doing, you're collecting crazy bills and debt to get out to be a slave to the dollar because why that's this. I mean, the college debts and loans are so expensive and through the
They're
roof. I mean,
ridiculous.
I ended up realizing I'm not gonna even.
Not gonna
I
pay
just
them
got
off.
the student loans. Yeah, just there they are. I mean,
Mhm.
they're like, oh, send us this thing every month telling us you can't pay and you can like do deferment. And I was like, yo, fuck you. I was like, I can't pay, and I'm not gonna send you the deferment thing.
Right.
It's like they can garnish my wages if I have a real job, but I
Yeah.
don't. So it's perfect. I honored my truth, and God help me out. So my homie Lorenzo was like, yeah, but what about chemtrails, Matt? How can people deny that? And I'm like, what's that? What are those? Like literally, this is the power of the seed. And everyone listening, every single person listening, the power that you have in your voice and the seed that you can plant is beyond comprehension. Like you don't
Mhm.
grasp it. Okay. But the thing is sometimes someone just needs to hear it again or from someone else or hear it once or whatever it may be. You cannot grasp the power of the metaphorical seed that you can plant in people's minds that later come to fruition into them becoming Malcolm effing X or whatever it may be. You have this power and people can't grasp it. And my friend Lorenzo's power, God bless him, he was like, you don't know about chemtrails, Matt? What? He was like, dude, you're the one that sat me down and made me watch the 9/11 conspiracy stuff, bro. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know I did. And he's like, dude, how do you not know about chemtrails? He's like, dude, they're all up in everyone's face and everyone just denies them. And he's like, go look it up. So I looked it up online and I was like, and I had actually like a memory tabled from it, like very recently on the farm where I witnessed weather engineering, but I didn't even know what I was seeing. And so then I started really being pissed, basically, that I didn't know. I had never, so like, I thought I knew everything, right? And
Mm-hmm.
now all of a sudden, in just a few months' time, this is great talking to you because I didn't even grasp that how this all panned out. Honestly, like literally, I did not realize that it was all in a very quick amount of time that I realized potatoes grew potatoes and that chemtrails were real and that I really knew
Mm.
nothing and I knew nothing. And and the fact that I knew nothing, it made me really upset basically. And so then I was like going around like passing out flyers about chemtrails and people knew nothing. They either knew that it was a crazy conspiracy theory and I was wasting my time, or they never heard the terminology.
Mm.
No one was like, oh, I know about this, bro. Let's start a fucking revolution. You know what I mean? Which is what I was hopeful for passing out my flyers because I was amped, right?
Right.
But then I kind of gave up, bro. I slowly but surely gave up because I found online, and this is the power of, sorry, controlled opposition.
Mm.
I found online
Mm.
that people had already done movies about chemtrails. And I found online that there was already all these activists and stuff. And I was like, oh, someone's already doing it. Sweet. I don't have to do it. And even if it's not controlled opposition, it's like it's part of our programming, which is like the Hollywood, like, oh, Batman will do it, Superman will do it. Don't worry, I can just support them and applaud them.
And
Like,
not worry about it.
yeah, good job. Where do I donate?
Right.
It's like, fuck, dude, you gotta do more than that, bro. You gotta get up in the game. Like being the change is not a spectator sport. You can't just sit on the effing sidelines and act like you're doing something straight up.
Right.
So eventually, my story is I actually had this like I well, okay, here's the story is when I was like 15 or something, my alcoholic dad ended up leaving us finally. My mom's crying about money, bro. And I was like, we got the Washington Post. I grew up, I'm probably a little, yeah, I'm a little older than you, 10 years older than you. I was born in 1980, October 23rd, 1980, in Denver, Colorado. And I grew up without the internet. And when I was 15, we still didn't have internet, but we got the Washington Post on our doorstep every day. And it had the business section, the money section. My mom was crying about money. And I was like, yo, there's this money section with stocks. And I was like, I'll just make money. Right. And so I started learning the stock market in 1995 and like hustling, just like I ended up getting in a lot of trouble when I was young because I was trying to hustle hard for my mom and stuff, but and whatever, that kind of thing, like make
Mm-hmm.
money
Mm-hmm.
and whatever.
I get where you're
Um,
going.
yeah, I did. I went to jail for like a month because it built up. I'd gotten a bunch of different little charges for just stupid stuff for like trying to, you know, help. But anyways, this is going somewhere. I started trading the stock market in 1995, bro. And then I did all right here and there and whatever. But what it did is like my life path. It's like actually a spiritual kind of journey your whole life if you look at it in a cool mindset from the right perspective. And so I started to learn gut instincts and cultivate my
Mm.
discernment. I had like street smarts and gut instincts, like for real. It's not that hard to like look and see who you don't want to like. You're like, okay, let's cross the street, or don't look at this person, or whatever, dude. Like, MS-13 started moving into my town, which
Mm-hmm.
is an El Salvadorian gang, and these kids in my neighborhood like jokingly flashed these MS-13 gang symbols and like got killed in my street, and that was like this like whole thing that like, and then that was like a young age for me, and it's just like everybody's got to like think about their street smarts and discern to a certain extent, right? Like, don't press those people's buttons. There's a crocodile right there. You're gonna go press its nose, you know?
Right.
Like
Right.
literally. So there's different levels of discernment and everybody has it and people cultivate it in different ways. And it's like you get to use it, which is cool with the truth, right? Like, does that
Mm-hmm.
resonate in my gut, or does that feel right? Does that feel wrong?
Right.
Or like, does this person feel right? Or does this person feel wrong, or whatever? Or like some of the stuff that this person says feels right, whatever. So I started to really like I'd wake up in the morning, not so much in 1995, but when I got really, I was like living in Humboldt and obsessed with the stock market and trading it. And like, dude, that shit opens up at like 6 a.m., you know?
Hmm.
And when you're living
In
in California,
California,
yeah,
yeah.
when you're in
Yeah.
California. So I'm like waking up and I'm like, oh man, did I already lose a lot of money? Cause I was doing crazy things, options and stuff. And like trading with my student loans. Like I was getting student loans and just
Yeah,
like
you
I was
were
like,
in
let's
it.
do
You were
this.
in
Let's
it.
learn the stock market and get rich. And I did maybe get a little rich and then I lost all of course, because that's how it happens. Dude, I was all up on so many good investments when I could talk about this forever, but I won't. But when Apple was first coming out with a phone, I
Mhm.
was like, dude, they're putting the iPod on a phone, yo. I was like, everybody,
That's a
Apple.
gold mine. Buy, 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 buy.
It was like, and I got so involved and got too much. I got overextended in it, and then there was the real estate alt A mortgage crisis or whatever, and I got Lehman puts, and I got rich on the Lehman. I did so many things right and then wrong because I got
See,
greedy because
that's
that's
the
what
problem
happened.
with business and with guys like us, the intuitive people who have emotions and feelings and strong feelings and stuff, is that you can't really have emotions and business mix. It's too much, and
Mm,
you end up losing in the long run. But I'm the
yeah,
same
no
way,
kidding.
that intuitive energy reading and stuff like that. And you do, once you start diving into truth, you start picking up on stuff like that.
So every morning, and I'm almost done. Every morning, I would wake up and just ask my gut, like, how did it go? Because every morning maybe I'm not up, or sometimes the news comes out at 4 a.m. and you're screwed when the market opens, anyways. Like it opens up red, and you're just like, and if you did something risky, it's just a sea of red, and you just lost your student loans. Or whatever it may be, your life savings. So, because I didn't like come, obviously I told the story, I didn't come from money. So in the end, though, all of this gut wrenching stuff, sometimes it felt good and sometimes it felt really bad. And then I'd look and it'd be green. And then I'd look and it'd be red. And I'd be like, whoa, actually, I kind of felt that without looking. Right. And this one time when I was working on the farm, actually, it's a personal story, I'm almost. I was working on that farm that I said, I only worked on that farm for 1 year. I was out there, no phone reception, working, and I just felt this like jab in my stomach. And I put all this money in this crazy biotech, like penny stock almost, it was like $1. And like some scandal came out and the thing like crashed, bro. I like lost all
Mm.
the investment. But like I was so obsessively dialed into every investment that I did because I was obsessive, that like I was intuitively like connected to it. And so I started learning. And that's how I really started to be able to get my gut discernment together. Like people cultivate it in different ways. You do
Right.
it like, you played poker for, whatever it is, but then you can flip it and take it to your advantage. So then I had this like gut feeling like that I had to, this is just kind of weird and out there and more spiritual. I had this energetic feeling like a gut instinct, like, oh, I did well in the stock market, that I had to move to Vancouver, Canada. And I was like, what? But all these things. And I ended up going, right? And all these things got in my way. And it was a total nightmare at first. It's like a wild story, really. But when I first got there, my first day, walking down the streets, finally got there. This dude is in the middle of the street with this 9/11 thing. It says WTF WTC7, which means what the F, World Trade
Mm-hmm.
Center
World
7,
Trade
fell
Center
in free
7. Yeah.
fall speed. If you don't know, third building in New York,
Never
everybody.
got hit with anything.
Right, right.
Was
That's
miraculously
huge,
on
people.
fire.
So
The
earlier when I
FBI
said,
headquarters was in there or something.
yeah, all this dirty stuff was in there and it just like melted in its footprint. So, and I went up to the people and started talking to them. And I was like, yeah, 9/11 was forever ago. What are you guys doing out here? And they're like, we try to come out it was March 11th, 2015. We try to come out on the um 11th of each month to like give a 9/11 awareness. And I was like, yeah, that's old news. What about chemtrails? And this one guy popped his head up and became my friend and kind of a mentor. And he helped me make Frankenskies. And
Mm.
like the rest is history, dude. It was just I kind of was destined to do it. I just had to not give up. And it's still it was crazy because I kind of gave up though. It was just wild. So my point of the story is don't give up. Yeah, don't give up, man. Because now I made Frankenskies and people love it. And
Oh,
so
it's
many
great.
people, yeah, it thanks. I was really blessed with it. My editor was totally kick ass, and I was trying to come out with it really early, and all this, like, the universe kept getting in the way. Like, all these things kept getting in the way. It was supposed to come out in like 2015, I
Mm-hmm.
thought, you know, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe more like 2016. But when it finally came out in summer, June 2017, I was able to include this footage of them normalizing and releasing Geo Engineering, which is Geo Engineering is chemtrails.
Mm.
And so the media started coming out with all this, like, normalizing it, and I was able to include it. And so now with the sequel, it's taken a while too, but I know there's going to be some wild stuff like climate change lockdowns in
Mm.
London. I'm going to
Yeah.
go over there and try to get some crazy footage and maybe protest and try to stop it and all that sort of stuff. So I rambled a lot, and I'd like you to ask questions if you have any. Please, I
So
don't want you to
yeah, I
miss.
mean, they were firing in my head as you were talking, like they always do. So, first of all, I think Zeitgeist is a great starter film for anybody who's even has a little seed planted about, hey, what's this truth stuff? You know what I mean? Zeitgeist is a great
Mhm,
start. I almost everybody that I talk to, at least maybe 1 out of 3 of them talk about Zeitgeist being an opener for them.
mhm,
The seeds planted that you mentioned, um, there's a saying where we come from, and it's like you're not ready till you're ready. You're not ready to hear till you're ready to hear. You're not ready to see till you're ready to see. And you could hear the same thing from 80 million different people, but maybe that 80 million and one person said it at that right time in the right tone under the right daylight for you to be like ding, and that's
mhm,
all it takes.
mhm.
Um, Also, I feel like I want to jump into a pretty heavy question and then we could backtrack from this because before I forget, because I'm gonna forget. Have you found any evidence that they're spraying to block out any celestial events? Because
That's a great question.
I'm in North Dakota,
Mhm,
right next to Big Sky, Montana, and they call it Big Sky for a reason because you can see a lot of sky up here. And
mhm,
every time that there's a celestial event that me and my wife track on our phones,
mhm,
uh, we always go outside and it's cloudy. And the first thing that comes to mind is chemtrails.
mhm.
They're spraying the sky. They're
Well,
blocking it out.
they control the weather, so
Right.
yes, and nothing is coincidence. I mean, the answer to your question is very much a yes. I don't know if you're on Facebook. My Facebook story is kind of, I've been getting really trolled, but I've got 70,000 followers on there, and I've created an amazing platform for people to be open-minded and talk. And my name's Matt Landman on there, and I do talk about that. So when there's like a full moon, I'm like, is anybody else noticing that during this eclipse or full moon or whatever, that they just came out of middle of nowhere and are blasting it and
Mm.
like making sure we can't. And yes, the answer, the long and the short is very much a big fat yes. So it gets a little. So my answer is going to get a little spiritual, and just cut me off in a
But
second.
nah, please do go.
Okay, so we're 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 spiritual beings. We're going through this like physical experience. We have like souls and all this sort of stuff. It's like way deeper than we realize. And part of our like triggers for us to grasp who we are and for our DNA to evolve and all this sort of stuff comes from like these light codes, I think, from the light that our bodies like absorb. So our bodies are built to absorb light from our whole endocrine system, and our skin cells, or all of our skin absorbs light, including our pineal gland absorbs light. And all of the light like dictates everything. It set up our circadian rhythm, which dictates all of our hormones and all this sort of stuff. But also, like, we evolve with it. And if you start to grasp that, for one, I even started to learn that supposedly the sun is spinning on like a 25-day cycle or something like that. If you look it up, supposedly the sun is spinning. So we get a different sun every day for like
Mhm.
25 days or something like that. Like, that's the supposed NASA. I don't believe NASA, but there are sunspots that move across because supposedly the sun's been. So the sunlight every day is different.
Mhm.
And it goes through its cycles every day of getting orange at the end of the day. And the days are shorter during the year and everything. And if you overlay on top of that all of the light that comes from the moon and its progression, waxing and waning, then you have this whole like concert of like light codes. If you think of it, you're a musician, right? Think of it as
Right.
like lay it on the freaking bars, right?
Right.
It's 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 light, and all of the light that are like different colors. Like our eyes only see Roy G. Biv,
Exactly.
which red,
They're
orange, yellow.
filters.
Yeah.
They're
And
filters.
so, mhm. And so, right. And so as all this stuff comes in, like there's going to be some crescendo moments or whatever where like the full moon is like almost full
Mhm.
and all these other celestial bodies are like lining up, right? And the powers that be are our handlers, whoever like whoever's
They
like
are
yeah, whoever's really got the playbook or whatever. They know these like critical moments that they can like disrupt the the song that we're getting, the music,
basically our
the download.
ascension,
Yeah.
our spiritual grove.
Yeah, they
So,
want to disrupt it. And then like literally I lived in Santa Rosa for a minute. I lived all over the place and like where the Bohemian Grove is,
mhm.
like they gather there, bro. And it'll be clear skies on these eclipses where everywhere else on earth.
Fogged out.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I'm thinking they get themselves hyphy and try to make it so that we don't get it so that they can get on top of us. And then meanwhile, we're also getting dosed with fluoride, GMOs, and all this other
All
stuff
kind.
from,
We're getting it 80 million different ways.
yeah, which is my opportunity to say, let this effing empower you because why are we under attack, bro? Like
Mm.
all of these things, list them all off. Like they want to get our children, they want to like line us up. And I mean, they literally want to inoculate with, I mean, they like the food, the water, the air, everything, you name
Mhm.
it. We can't even
Mhm.
get deodorant or lotion without worrying about it being toxic or drink water.
Chemicals. Yep.
Yeah. So why are we under such
A
fierce attack?
siege. It's a
Yes,
siege.
it's
Yeah.
literally why are we under siege? It's because they are shook, bro. They are scared of us.
Mhm.
Literally everyone has to grasp this. Do not be a victim. Do never play victim to any of it. Never go outside and be like, oh, the chemtrails. Be like, oh, you're that scared of me?
Yeah.
You want to play like that? And when
Yeah.
they spray lower, be like, oh, you're really that afraid? And when they build another 5G tower, be like, oh, you're really that shook? You know,
Mm.
like, dang, man, you must be really afraid of my potential because they are. They really
So,
are.
but before I go on to this next thing that brought up, I wanted
Mm,
to mention too to anybody listening that okay, chemtrails is like the term conspiracy theory. They've like denounced it. That
mhm,
term in general, they make it seem crazy, and that's what you call controlled opposition. I love that. I love that saying. I say it all the time, actually. They purposely gave that a bad rap. Conspiracy theory and chemtrails, when in reality, you hit the nail on the head earlier, is that it's geoengineering. If you use the term geoengineering, they'll admit it to you. They'll talk about it all day about how it's great. It's helping us control climate change and global warming and all that stuff. But if you say chemtrails, it's like you're a crazy tinfoil hat. You belong in a straitjacket. So I wanted to mention that.
mhm.
Secondly, what was the last thing that you said? Do you remember? Because I forgot now.
The concert of all the light codes, and
No,
they're blocking it.
just right
Oh,
now.
and then we're so awesome that they're trying to siege us, but we're badass and we're still gonna get through it and
Well,
win.
the human body is so raw. Like people who
Mhm.
are vaccinated, like my mom vaccinated me when I was a kid. You know what I mean? And look at me, I'm fine, and I still battle through like even like the worst colds. I'm not vaccinated from COVID. I'm not. You know what I mean? All this stuff. So like the human body is super raw. But I forgot where I was going with that second one. But I did want to mention to anybody listening that like these terms that they deem bad is because you got to. Oh, I know what I was going to say. You were
Mhm.
talking about the powers to be and stuff, and controlling. So I wrote when I noticed that, like I told you, I've been in North Dakota since 2013. And when I first moved up here, there was no spraying, no spraying. As the years went on, 2015, 2016, 2017, I started noticing like a couple every now and then. Now it's like you're talking about because in the winters, it gets super dry and super cold and windy out here. So it reminded me when you're talking about the desert is that they are pounding the pavement. And by pavement, I mean the skies. They are just spraying constantly up here. So I brought it up to my buddy who actually goes to Humboldt State. And he's like, why don't you write your local representatives? And I was like, that's a great idea. I looked him up and asked him. I went to the federal one and he was like, oh, thank you for writing. He got back to me and actually like responded to me. He was like, thank you for your
Oh.
concern. Thank you for writing me. Like, this is a great question. He's like, but I'm at the Fed level. Like, I don't really have anything to do with that. So he gave me a list of 3 guys that were in my district. And I
Oh.
wrote all of them the same thing that I wrote him, the questions. like, hey, have you guys like really looked at like the environmental impact or like the physical impact to humans on like crops, water, air, all that stuff? Because I noticed when they spray, my allergies act up like terribly.
Mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm,
the day after, when I see them spraying heavy, I'm like, I tell my wife the next day, like, watch, I'm gonna have a stuffy nose and be all like watery eyes and stuff,
mm-hmm.
and I do. So I asked him that. None of them wrote back except for one, and he said, "Thanks for your email." And that was it. Never
Gotcha.
heard back from any of them about anything. And I was like, "Are you serious, dude? Like, this is terrible."
That would piss me off.
Yeah, it did piss me off, but like again, as one person, I got two kids and a wife. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
not gonna go storm the Capitol,
No, I
guns
know, I
blazing
know.
and
What are you
stuff.
gonna do?
But at the same time, it's just like, wow, dude, like they really either they know and don't care, or they're like super blind to it, and it's like this guy's just crazy.
Well, the answer to that rhetorical question, and I've given this a lot of thought because I became the chemtrail dude, right? And it's indoctrination, compartmentalization, and need to know basis. I
Mm,
literally came up with that, bro, like in a hot bathtub or something. I was like, compartmentalization, indoctrination, need to know basis. Because they're compartmentalized, they're also indoctrinated,
yep.
like I think it's indoctrination, compartmentalization, need to know basis. But it's just like they think they're doing good for global warming or something because they're under this, guys. They're so compartmentalized, like everybody's compartmentalized, even like the pilots and the drone pilots and government and everything, you know. You mentioned chemtrails earlier, and for everyone listening, the word chemtrails, it has been like super demonized. And so you say the word, and people that are trained to be like, they're like, oh, that guy's psycho and crazy. But you say an exact synonym, which is geoengineering, and they're like, oh, I heard from like Greta Thunberg, and oh yeah, that's a good thing. They're doing that for, yeah, because the sun's
Exactly.
bad. The sun's bad. I don't want to have to put on the sunscreen. They're just doing it for me.
Mm,
I
right.
just came up with that. That's a pretty good one. So, anyways, so chemtrails, they're like, what they did is they hijacked it, which is very fascinating. So what they did is they started spraying. I mean, in my movie Frankenstein, which it starts off in the 1920s. Um, this the film, it goes through the historical chronological timeline of weather engineering and then chemtrails and geoengineering and all that, how it came to be. And the movie goes to the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And thank God I didn't narrate the movie because I hate narrated movies. So it's a documentary without a narrator, which is like very, very like hardly ever happens. And what was really nice about Frankenstein is after when the lockdowns happened and stuff, people contacted me and they're like, Matt, when I saw Frankenstein, I was like, oh man, the government's effed. But then when they did the lockdowns, I was like, oh, this can't be true either, because like they had that like seed planted that like they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't trust them. You know what I mean? So it was really cool to be able to get that foot in the door for a lot of people. So what the government or whoever, they, and that's another trigger word, and that's through the programming. You say, oh,
Mm-hmm.
they, and they go, who's they? It's like, dude, I was at my coffee shop the other day with my barista who I kind of have a crush on, and I was like, oh, they are turning off my cell phone bill at the end of the year. And she's like, oh, who's they? And I was like, Verizon, yo, gosh, like Verizon is, because I got a 3G phone. Verizon is like, you're turning off your 3G phone. We're gonna pay your last month's bill, and
Mm,
January 1st, you have no more 3G phone. So yo, I got a pager because I'm old like that, and I know how
there you
cool that
go.
is, and a landline and all this, and we'll see how that goes. But see, so here's what happened when chemtrails came to be, like in the mid 90s, and they really started to do it, because what happened is they couldn't create this ice age that they were predicting,
Mm-hmm.
okay, to scare the crap out of people. So they were like, okay, look, we can't create this ice age that we've been telling everyone's going to happen, because that's what the narrative was in the 80s and the early 90s. So they flipped the script completely,
Mm-hmm.
and we're like, look, there's going to be global warming. And they like, it was like literally reading off a script. Like they never even heard the word at the time. And so then the powers that be are like, yeah, we can reverse engineer that or whatever and spray the skies and then zap it with microwaves and all sorts of stuff. So they knew they were going to be doing these things called chemtrails. And so they coined the term, bro.
Mm,
And then they released the information like so on their terms. So it's like they've got unlimited budget. They like, work with the Fed or whatever. They're the goons. So they're like they're just like the CIA, they like these people brought crack to the ghetto to
Oh, I'm
bring
already
down
knowing. This is
African
like DOD
Americans and
stuff
stuff
and
like
like
they're bad.
black
Yeah.
books. Yeah.
So literally, I was in Portland, Oregon, like promoting this conference that I was trying to do about chemtrails, and realized because people were so like, I already know about this. Oh, someone already talked to me about this, bro. I already know. And I started to grasp that this is what they do, like straight up. This is what they do, and you guys aren't gonna believe me, but this is what they do. They hire people to be homeless crazies and literally like have a poster of chemtrails, bro, passing out chemtrail information. And
Mm,
they're like covered in crap. They smell bad. They're homeless Looney Tunes. And they're in every major city in your entire country, bro. Everywhere, especially on the West Coast. And
mm-hmm,
they're like, you got to know about this. You got to know about this. Chemtrails, chemtrails. Look at the sky. They're killing you. They're spraying you. They're killing you. They're spraying chemicals to kill you. That's
mm-hmm.
it. They're not going to tell you that they're engineering the weather. They're not going to tell you what's the nitty gritty of really what's going on at the deep of it. Are they spraying chemicals to kill you? Kind of, yeah. But they're gonna get to you and create the first mental pathway in your brain from A to B, which is when someone says the word chemtrails, you're gonna remember that crazy homeless person on the street
Trigger.
every time for the rest of your life, bro.
Mm.
Or they'll put it in a movie or whatever, and they'll control your mental construct, your mental cognition, your mental concept of the terminology of the word. So I come along and I'm like, chemtrails, da, da, da. That's why I made up the word Frankenskies, bro. I made up the word Frankenskies. I'm really
Mm,
proud of it too. You go on TikTok, type on Frankenskies, it's got hundreds of thousands. Same with Instagram, hundreds of thousands
that's
of tags
badass.
and Facebook and stuff and whatever. I just got really lucky. I was in the perfect time, perfect place, and whatever. And like, I mean, it's not like I'm Franken's food, but
Mm-hmm.
that word, it helped to get people not all obsessed with the freaking word chemtrails. Cause it's like the movie was basically gonna be like chemtrails or getting you or whatever until I came with the word Franken's guys, like like how's it gonna, you know what I
It
mean?
gave it structure.
Yeah, it did. It gave it like something else. It gave it a different mental pathway. So people were like, oh, that crazy homeless, the way that they get us is so good. And like, I don't know if you said that you and your wife had a kid, but if you ever watched children's programs, it's
Mm-hmm.
so much more easy to see the programming and the
Oh
children.
yeah.
So they'll be like, we should really start eating crickets, like, and you're like, whoa, they're
It's
not even like,
protein.
for the kids, they don't play. They just like plant the seed because the
Yep.
kids, because now it's like in their head and they're like, oh, but it's under like some friendly because it was when like Teletubbies were running around. They're like crickets, crickets. You know what I mean? It's like, oh wow, I love crickets and I love to eat them, right? Because the Teletubbies did.
Jesus.
It's like no, they got to you first. They got
Mm-hmm.
to you before I could say the crickets are bad, or an activist or whatever the truth may be. They got to you first. And it's not so hard to break your mental pathways up if you're smart, if you're like an open-minded thinker, or yeah, open minds, the name of your show. Yeah, if you have open minds, right? But not everybody, is willing to go there, right? It's just like not everyone is. People have like closed minds. Really, really, really quick story. I had a friend in Eureka in Humboldt County, and I met him very randomly. He was an ex-Marine. Um, he found one of my flyers and contacted me. It was such a cool synchronicity. And he's like dying to tell me his life story. Um, Trying to get me to not believe in NASA and all this sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, his story was so fascinating. He was a good old boy. He was a Marine from Louisiana. He went to the Marines and he served for a while. And then he was really smart and he learned Arabic. He's a white
Mm-hmm.
dude, learned Arabic, translator. He was the Arabic translator. And then when 9/11 happened, he was watching the news with his platoon and they're about to deploy the next day. And on the news, Fox News showed Osama bin Laden speaking in Arabic. And then they translated it completely wrong, like completely wrong. Like he was
Mm-hmm.
like talking about his favorite cuisine straight up. And they were like,
Propaganda.
death to America. Yeah. And he was like, yo, what the, and then his people, his platoon were like, yo, you're nuts. And he said it was divine intervention that he got in this big fight at the bar and got his ass jumped that night and didn't go out with his guys. And then he got a dishonorable discharge in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then 10 years later, he's in Humboldt. 10 years have gone by.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's in Humboldt doing his own thing. He's like selling these like encrypted phones and stuff, like doing his own hustle.
That's dope.
And back when all the strains weren't totally like crisscross applesauce. There's like really the genetics are still good, but they're not as good as they used to be.
Right.
There was these genetics like granddaddy perps and like these different things you could probably not get your hands on so easily anymore.
The
There are
OG
seed
strains.
banks.
Yeah.
Yeah, these OG strains. So my friend, he was smoking a blunt of Granddaddy Perps, the
Hmm.
strain, this purple strain. That was really exciting in the Bay.
I
Everybody
remember it.
loved it. Yeah,
GDP, dog.
yeah, GDP. He's smoking this blunt to the face, bro. And then, boom, he could see in color and he could taste the perps. And he didn't realize that 10 years ago, he got so many jabs and fluoride in his teeth and all these experimental things
Mm,
as a Marine about to deploy that he was grayed out, bro. For 10 effing years, he was grayed
wow.
out. And so he lost it. He's like, wife, I'm locking myself in the closet. For a week, he was in the closet. And she brought him food and more dank bud, especially perps, so he could taste it because he didn't realize he wasn't tasting for 10 years. So
Wow.
something you said triggered that, and I wanted to share that story about the mind. Oh, well, maybe something I said. The mind is not lost. We're not lost. We can always open it even further, but we all have been programmed, maybe not as bad as the Marine, but I grew up drinking that fluoride, bro, and
Hell
drinking a
yeah. They
glass
gave
of
it to
milk
us
with
in
dinner and
school and
stuff.
shit.
Dude, a lot of schools, like they stopped it and walked around and gave everybody pills of it, like big ones,
Dude, they
you
were
know?
huge.
Yeah. It's like, what's that about? No, it's good for your teeth. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, the people that didn't have that, their teeth are bad, right?
Right.
Excuse me, there's never been a single study showing that it's actually good for your teeth. So, so the chemtrails, a lot of people want to know the who, what, why, where, when, how, so they can convey the message to their friends and family and peers. Because people ask questions, and you don't always have all the answers. So you can tell them, look, I don't have all the answers. I can relay you to the movie Frankenstein. And I do hear that they're spraying aluminum, barium, and strontium because people test rainwater after really heavy spray days, and it's beyond corollary at this point. Like ordinary citizens have had to take science into their own hands
Yeah.
because the EPA and all that sort of stuff doesn't look out for us because all these things have been co-opted and bought. I mean, like basically after 9/11, everything went out the window. Like
Oh
everything
yeah.
got black ops and like Congress doesn't even know where half their money goes towards. And it's just like, but even before that, we were already kind of slipping, I guess. But now here we are. Welcome to the new world. Oh, and another thing I just want to say really quick on a really side weird tangent is there's a huge hijacking of humanity going on. I noticed like with the movies, we had like the 60s, 70s, 80s, and all this different film stock. Every single decade, we had different film stock, different music, different styles.
Hmm.
Now, right when we got to 2000, we had 9/11. And then when we got to 2020, we had these lockdowns and stuff. But like, has anybody ever said anything about the 20s or the 30s or like how humanity, like, oh, people in the 20s are like this? Like, we're like like, it seems like we're being stripped of all of our humanity, just replacing it with tech.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's kind of like the hijacking that I see that's going on. It seems like an evident,
Transhumanism.
yeah, it's an evident, planned transhumanism hijacking. And I just want my decades back, man.
I do too. See, I was born in the 90s, so I
Yeah,
caught
what's
the
up?
tail end of that where
Cool.
like I enjoyed the outside playing and stuff before technology, like right before. Like I
Nice.
got just the cusp of it. So
Good
I
job.
know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I wasn't anything that I did, but yeah.
No, I'm
Uh
saying I'm glad that you got to experience
yeah,
it.
so I want to go back to something that you said too about your buddy saying that he was trying to convince you that NASA's full of shit.
Hmm. I mean, he's right.
When we right when we were talking about like the energies and then blocking out the celestial events and stuff, and you were saying that like NASA says that it spins and stuff. I mean, in my opinion, it's like forget NASA because if you're a truther like me and anybody else listening to this show, you've probably dove into Egyptology and ancient people, Mesopotamia, all that stuff. So like you probably know to some degree that like the ancients thrived off energy from the celestial events and like seasons and eclipses like you talked about and stuff like that. So I just wanted to mention that like that's like so profound for human beings to advance and evolve the way we're supposed to, not the way they're controlling us to.
They probably knew the days too. They probably like, oh, this is the day. Let's all go outside and like bathe in this energy kind of thing.
Exactly. And like how
Yeah.
you were saying at the farm, like you got really grounded. Did you ever work that farm barefoot? Like did you actually get grounded?
No, but if you put I was thinking about it just the other day. If you put your hands in the dirt, then
You're getting grounded.
you're getting the same grounding, just the same.
Absolutely.
Um, no, I'm from the city.
Got to keep my shoes on.
Yeah. That's it.
I mean, Sacramento's pretty much city too, so I feel the same way. It was really until like a year and a half ago that I really started like trying out the barefoot thing, and it's just periods. I'm not like walking around like what's his name from Dual Survivor, like 25 years barefoot, but
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely there is something to that. So
There's something
uh,
amazing to it. I really quick, I had a because I go on these shows and people reach out to me and stuff. I had a friend from New Mexico with a sports injury. His knee was busted, and he
mhm.
learned about grounding. And he was like, "Dude, I just went and dug a hole, and I just started burying myself in it." And after like years of this like chronic injury, like it was like 30 years ago, like from high school football, he healed
Wow,
himself just from burying himself in the ground. Because like there's this there's a Schumann resonance of like 7.8 hertz that like fine tunes all of our organs and all of our cells and everything in our body. We're electrical beings. We
mhm.
shouldn't be wearing rubber soles, and we should be grounding out that energy as much as possible. I even started carrying grounding stuff, grounding mats and stuff at my
Excellent.
EMF company. But like that word tree huggers, they
Mhm.
demonize, they flip everything that's good. They flip, like, I just realized recently the peace sign is upside down. Everything's inverted and like messing with us. And then we agree to it and think that we're like, it's actually just flipped. Everything's flipped. So tree huggers is actually good. You know, I grew up thinking that astrology was all super bunk, but I'm learning that it's beyond, it's not at all,
Yeah.
not at all bunk at all.
So I think you obviously watched the dimming, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay, so that was kind of like the first I knew about chemtrails and stuff like that, but until like I really dug into them, like I've heard the term and I was looking at them and I was like, oh yeah, they're spraying the skies. Like I was all on board because I was already well into truth when I heard that. But that's kind of the movie that cracked the gate open for me on like really digging into it. And it was hella funny because I was working with a buddy one day and he's like, man, these clouds look really weird. And I looked up and I think I sent you a picture of it on Instagram, but it was that's the radio wave clouds after they did
Mm.
done spraying and then they shoot the 5G radio waves through it or the HARP radio waves. Uh, and I just went off on a tangent with them on the same thing like your buddy, like, dude, you don't know about this? And I just started going in on, I'm like, watch the dimming, this and that. And this is before I heard of you or Frankenskies. So that was
And
kind of
those,
what, go ahead.
that's awesome. And I saw we were going to start to interrupt you, but I think often when I see those ripples, I'm really suspect of what they're interfering with. Like sometimes when it's a full moon and then they go and blast the chemtrails in front of it and then they zap it, I'm like, dude, they're really trying to disrupt. I mean, like, I don't know the best metaphor for that in a musical stance, but that would be like that'd be like you playing your music and me coming and putting like speakers in between, right? And
Playing
blasting
something
my
totally
shit.
different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's break that down, okay? Because this is my interpretation of what
Hmm.
they're doing on a like a layman's term, okay?
Hmm.
So basically, these drones or these manned planes by conditioned pilots fly around and they spray the skies with these heavy toxic metals and other solutions. And their idea is that they're blocking out the sun. They're ultimately creating the what is the term? The
Greenhouse effect.
greenhouse effect to block out the sun to cool the earth. But not only are they just spraying, but they're shooting radio waves through it as well to like to dissipate it or to like to make the screen stronger, basically.
They
So
zap it to like suspend it. In their eyes, they think they're suspending it, I think. And like making
okay,
the screen, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like making
and
the screen all
so
strong.
there's these scientists that are there's like a few scientists that are like the head of this stuff that they're showing at least because they're not showing their whole hand obviously, but the front runners, these guys are
Mm.
these scientists and they're like super proud of this, and I believe that some of them actually think that they're doing good because they're egotistical, like they want to be the first one to be like, my name was accredited to saving global warming, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it's just human nature when you get into a position of power. So there's these scientists that are backing this with scientific paperwork, and they're getting, like you said, unlimited funding to do this and to keep throwing these papers like, yeah, it's working, even if it's like 0.00000%, it's working.
Hmm.
So break that down into what is really going on based on what I just said, because that's like the layman's term or like the quick idea of what I see going on.
Well, you pretty much nailed it. So what they do, they, is well, here's what goes down is they'll prime the sky with these short trails that I think are barium, and they'll be zigging around with these short trails, and people are like, oh, that's just a contrail, that's nothing to worry about. The contrail is another play on words. It's a con.
Mm.
Those engines up there are just propellers pushing air, and there's no hot air coming out, and so there's no contrail at all. And people are addicted to the thought that there's hot air coming out because they think there's a lot of jet fuel burning, because they think that these big fat engines, they're called high bypass turbofan jet engines. They were perfected around the 1960s by Rolls-Royce and General Electric, and by now they're just these big fans that are creating lift over the wings. They're 2 tons of steel and titanium. They slammed into the Pentagon and didn't even break a window or a blade of grass,
Mm.
but they are really big. And because of 9/11, everybody, including me and you, think that there's so much jet fuel in planes and that they're hot, even though we know that they're not. We're like, oh, like even in the back of our heads, we're like, no, we know 9/11 was BS. It's like, we know there's a lot of heat. There must be. I mean, they're jet fuel planes, right? But come to find out, there's like air compressor units on the plane that keep those propellers going, and they just use jet fuel to take off and land. And that's a whole story too. So what they do is they condition the sky like creating a base for a soup, or like a base for painting, and they'll
Mm.
spray the barium with the short trails. And those are the days where I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't breathe. Actually, you have your
Mm.
sensitivity days, and I have my sensitivity days. And so sometimes they'll do it all in one day where they spray the short trails, medium trails, and the long trails. It's like they build up. I think the short trails are barium, the medium trails are strontium, the long trails are aluminum. So, anyways, maybe this process takes a couple of days, but when you see the short trails all out and about, watch, because next there's going to be longer ones that stick. They're spraying barium that you can't really see with those short trails. And those are a lot of drones and barium release rockets, go back to NASA patents in the late 70s. So once they get all their chemicals in the sky, after, and some of them at the end are these long persistent ones of aluminum that stick well because they put these other chemicals up there to mix them with. Then they have these ground-based stations. It used to be just called HARP, which is an acronym, HAARP. It stands for the Highly Active Auroral Research Program, which was in Alaska. And this is like a big football field of antennas, each one 40 feet tall. And they would have all these antennas pick a focal point in the atmosphere, and have intersecting radio waves in the atmosphere. So if you put food in the microwave, there's
Mm.
water in your food, there's moisture in the food, and there's radio waves, little ones, micro-sized radio waves, still radio waves, and they're blasting the food from either direction, and they're intersecting each other in the food. There's intersecting radio waves, heat oscillating the water molecules to make it heat up, and that's how microwaves work. And then it's like got a little protection so the microwave doesn't get out and microwave the frequencies. So in the sky, they pick a focal point with, they used to use the ground-based HARP station, and they would pick a focal point in the atmosphere and then spray chemtrails even to make it metallic, to even heat it up even better, and then have the antenna array have these different big antennas that look like big, like antennas on a television. They're like these huge antennas, like hundreds of them, and they pick a point in the atmosphere, like a big square mile, and they blast intersecting radio waves, basically microwaving the sky in a focal point in an area. And so that area can have a bunch of chemicals of chemtrails in it. And so they'll spray all these different chemicals that they want heated together. And I think some of the chemicals are even charged differently. So one will have a positive, one has a negative charge, so it attracts to each other, and then they'll bond and stuff. So they want to link together. And you can sometimes see them like when they spray, like they'll be like side by side trying to get the stuff to mix together. And then once it starts to unravel, then they'll zap it. And with the HARP stations, but now they have these ionospheric heater stations. They heat the ionosphere with these. They're called NEXRAD and Doppler. Some of them look like these big golf balls on the side of a mountain, and they say that
Yeah.
they're predicting the weather for you. They're really controlling the weather. It's kind of ironic that they say they're predicting the weather and really controlling it. And so they use these radar whatever stations to blast these radio waves after the chemicals have been sprayed with drones and planes and rockets and stuff. And NASA has a whole program. NASA has a budget of $60 million per day.
A day.
A day. And they have a chemtrail
Wow.
program, and it's called
Yep.
CARE, CARE. And they don't care. It's the charged aerosol release experiment, and they have planes and drones and all this stuff. And they spray publicly, they tell you they spray aluminum, barium, strontium to make noctilucent clouds. They name the clouds. They look like chemtrails. They just don't tell you how often they're doing it, because you just assume that their $60 million a day is going to
Finding
whatever.
life on Mars.
Yeah, yeah, all that other stuff. I think maybe earlier you wanted to talk a little bit about NASA. Is maybe you brought it? Is that maybe something that you wanted to bring back up? But I'll just keep going. Firstly, so um, they get the chemicals in the sky and then they zap them in the sky, and then they're elevated for like the day, basically. And then at the end of the day, when the pressure drops, they kind of fall down to the ground and get in our water and our air and kill birds and all this sort of stuff. So and get in our soil and they mess things up. A lot of researchers, there's a cool researcher out of Redding, California, that was studying lichen,
Mm.
because lichen breathes nutrients through, or gets nutrients through the air, and the lichen was full of aluminum, barium, strontium because of the geoengineering. I mean, they're slowly saying that they're doing it. I interviewed in Frankenstein's the movie. I interviewed Bill Vanderzam, who was a politician, basically like a governor of British Columbia. They call it a premier of British Columbia, Canada. And I went to his estate, and he was like, "Dude, my people reached out to me, so I reached out to the federal level, and they said, yeah, we're doing it, but we can't tell you everything." And so everybody that is in the quote unquote no, they think that it's for the common good, because they are somehow believing this lie that Al Gore said that we're going to be all underwater by 2020 or whatever, which has already passed.
Way
Sea
past.
levels haven't risen. They never will. A lot of us don't live on the coast and can't grasp what sea level even means. But there's erosion. Erosion happens. Sea level hasn't risen. It won't. It never will. It never has. It never did. It never will. Not even an inch. It's not gonna. Just FYI. You can quote me on that. So, anyways, people think though that New York's going to be underwater and that they have to save the world by limiting the amount of sunlight that gets to the earth. And so, if they can create this artificial, it's called increasing the albedo of the earth, or the reflectivity of the earth. So, if they can increase the reflectivity by creating an artificial cloud layer, then they can save us from global warming. And they say once they start, they can't stop, because if they stop, then it'll heat up all fast and whatever. So they've started, and they've actually got governance bodies in place. There's SRMGI, the Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative. There's all these different acronyms for it. So it's ongoing with all these different acronyms. There's SPICE, stratospheric particle injections for climate engineering. There's SRM, solar radiation management. There's a bunch. SAI, stratospheric aerosol injections. All these are synonyms for
Let me ask
geoengineering.
you this: what
Yeah.
do you believe would happen if they just cold turkeyed, stopped right now? You think we'd
Uh,
get hit with like a massive like weather, like
no.
Mother Nature punching back?
Nothing. Everything balances itself out, and probably the deserts would start raining. It'd be amazing. Nothing
Mm,
bad would happen. Like
right.
that's all fear mongering, and they don't even know. They say it's going to be all bad if they stop. That's just fear based. I can almost guarantee that it would just, the hydrological system has been totally fine without our interference for quite some time. The hydrological system needs not our interference, and never
Mm,
has and never will. And all of this, like, oh, we're going to create a high pressure bubble off the coast to steer the jet stream and all this, it's all weaponized. I mean, if you see what they did in Texas, if you see what they did in Florida, it's all weaponized.
California.
The
Yep.
drought, yep, California. The California drought, for those that don't know, has been a totally weaponized thing to consolidate ag, and like slowly but surely farmers have to give up.
Hmm.
Farmers can't like just hope that things are going to get better after like a decade of like not having their crops produced. They got to just basically pack up and do something else. Like after, but like, and literally Bill Gates is sitting there being like, I'll give you 10 cents on the dollar.
Right.
Because Bill Gates, guess what? He's, he's, he's the geoengineering dude.
That
He's the
was the
guy.
that was a big thing in North Dakota right now because he just bought up a bunch of farmland, and the AG out here was just like the attorney general was like, "Whoa, wait a minute," because there's laws in North Dakota like to prevent people from doing that.
Oh,
But
wow.
this dude has just like buku bucks, so he took it to the Fed court, the Supreme Court or whatever, and they overthrew the attorney general out here and let him keep the land.
Yeah,
But
he owns more land now in the farmland than anybody. And it's like
so
conflict of interest, man, because he is the quote sugar daddy of geoengineering. He's the sugar
100%.
daddy of geoengineering. Like it's been quoted in all these publications and the Harvard people and everybody, they know that he's the dude. So it's like, if he's the dude that's in charge of whether or not you get rain, and he can come and buy you out and take your farmland and then let it rain on his property, that's conflict of interest, people. Like, there used to be like DOJ and like no monopolies, Department of
Mm-hmm.
Justice and all this stuff. Like, these things kind of don't exist anymore.
No, like you said, 9/11 just opened the floodgates for that to
Yeah.
just go away. Because
Mm-hmm.
in the 80s they cracked down big on monopolizing, and
Yeah.
that's why all these
Straight up.
companies had to like split off and create other companies and
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
prevent that stuff. And now like
Mm-hmm.
T-Mobile's buying everybody up, Verizon. But yeah, something that you said too, the farmers they have to pack up and go. So basically, it's taking like local generational owned farmland
Mm-hmm.
that we would probably consider like natural farming off the land, the proper way of farming, and it's putting it in the big hand of like big farming people, like
Monocropping.
corporations. Yeah,
Yeah.
corporations. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like
Mm-hmm.
Gatorade's good for the crops because it needs electrolytes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Great movie. Great movie.
yeah,
Um, and worth mentioning is, I don't think that Bayer would ever be able to buy Monsanto in the 1980s. No effing way would the company that makes you sick be able to be the one that gets you better.
right.
Come on. It's like a horror film.
So how much weather do you think is controlled now? Is geoengineered across the
I
planet?
mean, I mean, if I say 100%, people are going to be like, "Well, I didn't see chemtrails today." They let that happen. Anything
Mm-hmm.
that we see nowadays, they let happen. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've come to learn. I've come to learn. I mean, if where I live, which is Ashland, Oregon, right on the border of California and Oregon, there's Mount Ashland. Like, I can see it, like if I step outside, and there's a big neck shroud, big golf ball right there. And all my friends wake up at 3 a.m. They're like, it's weird. I can't every day. Like, they do some frequency stuff all the time in the middle of the night. I think it's some day lift stuff, bro. It's like in the middle of the night when everyone's sleeping and everyone's like brains are very susceptible. They hit them with some certain frequency to keep them every day. They hit them with a certain thing that lasts 24 hours that keeps us in a certain bandwidth. I swear it. But yeah, they have a big thing here, a big golf ball on the roof on the top of the mountain, the biggest mountain. And every time we're supposed to get some like week of rain or something recently, it like it glitches around this area and doesn't hit us and goes
Really?
somewhere else. Yeah, like Mount Shasta is an hour south, and they just had the earliest opening of their ski resorts because they got all the rain. We were supposed to get all this rain recently, and we didn't. There's a big bullseye on Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon will dismantle the West Coast
It's
because
the
it's
next
like this.
California.
Yeah, they got a big bullseye on it because they wanted, exactly. It's the next California, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're doing it with the gun laws and all this sort of stuff, and they're gonna try to burn it up. I mean, every time there's a disaster on the news, like fires or hurricane or something, and they spin it, and they're like, we need a solution to this. Maybe there's geoengineering. Maybe we can tax you and lock you in your homes and climate change lockdowns and all this. It's all this one big umbrella of our enslavement. I hate to say, and when it comes here and they say you got to lock inside your house, we got to bucket. I mean, maybe the Europeans will be able to bucket before it gets here, but when it comes here, we have to say no. We have to
Yeah.
bucket. We cannot abide by their climate change lockdown BS that I know is coming. It's very
Oh,
obvious what
oh
they're
yeah.
setting up. The writing's
They
on the wall,
they
sadly.
planted the seeds before coronavirus. It was in a couple articles, but it was like quietly like slipped in there, kind of like we talked about, like planting the seed. And
Mm-hmm.
then now they're like, oh yeah, scientists got the data, and it did wonders for the climate, when we were all in our houses
Exactly.
for a year and a half,
Exactly.
2 years. So
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely
Yeah.
coming. There are, like you
The
said,
rewilding.
yeah, they're already planning to do it out in London in a suburb, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, Oxford, the whole county of Oxfordshire and the city of Oxford, they're going to make it a 15-minute. Everything's got to be done in 15 minutes. And you can't leave. Oh, and if you want to leave your county, bro, you have to go in front of a panel and tell them and apply, bro. If you want to leave your country, oh, you
Whoa.
got to really apply because everything's got a carbon footprint and you've got like a social credit. Basically, everybody thinks that it's so bad in China,
Hmm.
and it's not going to be like that here.
Hmm.
We're going to have our own version of it, and it's going to be probably worse,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Guess
It's
what? Yeah.
We kind of already did. It was like a testing ground. That's what I was about to say too about California. For people who don't know, for like the last 25, 30 years, like California has been a testing ground for what they're about to take. pretty much globally.
Oh yeah, 2030, no gas, no generators and
No
all this
fresh
stuff. It's
water.
yeah, it's like, oh, we can't collect water, we can't have generators. For those that don't know, like so much of California is in the hills and the country and stuff, and these people rely on generators. You
Hmm.
can't just take that from them. That's like it's like literally declaring war. Oh, and then at the same time, I mean, this is like kind of a side note, but Biden saying that we can't have incandescent light bulbs, yo, I'm like, what? Like he literally is banning the sale of it. Like no one's gonna be legally allowed next year to sell incandescent bulbs in the United States.
They're
I'm like, yo,
messing with our frequencies.
that's a tyrant, bro. That is not a president. That is a tyrant. Yeah, exactly. Messing with our frequencies, not giving us free will and choice of our lights, bulbs, or lights. It's messed up. Everything's getting weird. Oh, do you have any purple street lamps popping up in your area?
Oh yeah, they say it's a malfunction at a manufacturer. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a malfunction. Yeah,
very
what is
interesting.
that about?
I mean, I could be the crazy conspiracy dude, but I don't know. I
Spit it.
really,
Yeah,
really don't
spit it.
know.
What's your take on
Well,
it?
oh, I don't have a take, but my
Okay.
my what I have heard is that some of the jabs have different things in it that are triggered by certain spectrums of UV, and that our spectrum that we see is Roy G. Biv V violet is the very end, and that those lights are violet, and embedded in them can be stuff that's on the edge of the spectrum that we cannot see, like ultraviolet, some really bright, weird flickering stuff that we can't see that could be triggering some nanotech that's in us from the freaking
Are you
jabs or
talking
the
about
chemtrails
like
or something.
Marchurian candidates or something?
I'm just talking like maybe there's something that everyone got injected with or whatever that's being activated by these things that and then they'll show symptoms or drop dead. I don't know. Or people say that it's for when everyone has the mark of the beast and they can show their little quantum tattoo or whatever. That seems a little too obvious. Oh, also people are saying that only people with the jab will glow and then everyone's going to have to glow, which I think is nonsense. But some of these purple lights are accompanied with cameras with AI, and I think
Mm.
maybe that people with certain stuff in them might glow under the camera. Like they'll have the lens to be able to see them, and then it's
So they
big
could tell.
tracking. Yeah, they can tell really, really easily.
Hmm.
But that's all really weird. But what was interesting is in my town, one got put up and it's at the border of the California intersection. So it was really interesting. And it was with a 5G little panel thing and like 8 cameras, which there's like no cameras in this town. So it's like,
Huh.
it was really curious. And then the second one that get put up was at the high school. So then when I was looking at other videos online, this one guy was like in Texas and he was like, dude, there's 10 of these purple street lamps and they're only at the high school. And I was like, what the F, man? So there's something weird. I can't say what's up, but like I always keep an open mind. So I'm not going to go and say, oh, I know this because I don't jump to conclusions, and jumping to
Hmm.
conclusions make you look like a crazy conspiracy theorist, ungrounded, whatever person. It takes some time to come and to reach conclusions, and it's important to keep an open mind though, you know.
Absolutely.
So at this point, I'm still collecting data, and I'm very curious, and it ain't no defect because they would replace it,
Right.
especially in this like cush little town that I live in. Like they would replace the defect. They
Well,
wouldn't
see,
just
and
like
that's
slowly put
that's
in
what I'm
more.
saying too. Is I live in a little town that's like maybe 30,000 people, and the closest towns near it that are like cities are like 2 hours away either direction. So like we're super rural besides here. And the only place I've noticed them is like on one weird street that's like a main street they just built, so it's turned into a main street. And the other one, they're in the Albertsons and Ace Hardware parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't noticed them at the high school, but I don't venture towards the high school, not too much. I have one kindergartner, so
I have no idea, but there are certain patents that, like some of these boosters, have ingredients that get activated under certain spectrums of light. So it
mhm.
is very feasible that a certain, like I believe that not everyone got the same juice. There was
I believe
placebos
it
and all
too.
these different things, and so maybe some people with a certain juice, something might get activated, and then we'll have some weird outbreak. I have no idea, bro. But I'm keeping it open because I know for a fact that whatever happens in the next couple of years is bullshit. I know
Hmm.
that.
Oh,
That's what I know.
100%.
Like aside
100%.
from just like us going through life, like whatever happens, like right when Kobe died, and it was right when we were getting locked down, I was like, that's BS, bro. That's BS. Like my gut instinct is pretty spot on, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything nowadays, it's pretty much some like satanic sacrifice. Sadly, I mean, but like if anything really crazy happens in the next in my lifetime, honestly, like alien invasion or um
Fresh water shortage.
yeah, Russian nukes, whatever's gonna be,
Fake.
yeah, straight up calling it fake right here. So
Propaganda.
I wish I could
Propaganda.
just place that bet in Vegas fake and then
It
win.
might he might be able to soon. Who knows with the way things
That'd
are
be
going.
cool. Yeah.
So where does 5G fit in all this? Does this have anything to do with the stuff that they're spraying in the sky?
Yeah, it's all linked. It's all like this umbrella of control or this octopus with all these different tentacles that all interact together. A lot of people don't know that like fluoride comes from the melting of aluminum, and fluoride likes to get into your brain, gets past your blood-brain barrier really easy because it's like nano level and it's just really small. But aluminum can't really get past the blood-brain barriers easy, but the fluoride pulls the aluminum past your blood-brain barrier, and the two interact and have these little micro explosions as they rebond chemically in your brain. Aluminum fluoride, they love to rebond. They came from the same source, and it's like they slowly get you the aluminum through the chemtrails, the food, the deodorant, whatever, and then they get the fluoride in your toothpaste, the drinking water, whatever, and then you get EMF from the phones and the 5G,
5G
and then it
towers.
breaks down your blood brain barrier, and it all gets in your brain. You get Alzheimer's and whatever. But the 5G is slowly getting cranked up, and people don't grasp that. I have these foam bags that I sell with my EMF protection clothing line called SPERO, Spiro. It's a Latin word. It's like I hope in Spanish. It's based on the Spanish verb esperar, which is to hope. And so spero means I hope. And I'm trying to bring hope to the next generation by protecting them from all this radiation and whatnot and education. So I make these foam bags. You put your phone in and it kills the signal because of the silver lining. And in March 2020, the phone bag stopped working. I had to adapt and double them up. And then when the Omicron came out, I had to triple them up. And so
Wow.
there's a direct correlation with the cranking up of this radiation from these phones. And 4G LTE stands for long-term evolution, stands for 5G, 5G phones. It's all this like mesh network that's going to be part of the transhumanism dystopia. And it's nothing like its predecessors. It's a new form of radiation, and it'll probably make it so that kids can't have kids in the future. And it's like
Mm.
really predatory because it's a really small wave that I think attacks reproductive organs specifically. It was this technology was first made as an active denial system, ADS, in the military, and they made this military sized military grade frequency wave, a millimeter in size, that absorbs just into your skin and hits your nerve endings. And so it's a frequency fence, an invisible fence for insurgents in Afghanistan and Iraq. And it just looks like a Humvee with a freaking 5G tower on it. It's unreal.
Mm.
And they made it so that that 5G frequency, basically the millimeter carrier wave, would anybody that came in the vicinity of it, their skin would burn. Well, they tweaked it for 5G and it absorbs below our skin, it absorbs deeper, it absorbs into our bodies, and it doesn't go through us, it absorbs right into us. And I think it's going to be pretty bad for people that are around it a lot and then are born, I mean, conceived, born, and raised in it. We're looking at like some children of men, like after 20 years from now, once people are conceived, born, and raised in a 5G environment, there's going to be like a huge fertility fall off, and then they'll push this whole transhumanism reality and convince people they need to live forever to save humanity and clone themselves and cyborg themselves out and all this sort of stuff. It'll be because the fertility drops so much, like straight up like a handmaiden's tale, whatever. So 5G, it plays a huge role because it's all up in all of that stuff, and then it probably activates chemtrail stuff, and it even like can keep the chemtrail stuff elevated in the sky. If you got 5G microwave towers everywhere, they want these things every 500 feet.
Every five, that's what I heard. Every
Yeah,
500 feet for it to really work.
yeah, because the carrier wave is so strong, and they want self-driving cars and all the stuff on it. They really can't push it as strong as they want to, unless it's every 500 feet. So if you've got a freaking crazy 5G tower every 500 feet, it can actually get that chemtrail constituents that are being zapped in the sky to try to elevate them. They can zap it at ground level and elevate them. And then we're in like a soup of it. You know what I mean? Like they can get it to be
It reminds me of
horrible.
like the movie Fifth Element.
Yeah, all of this is out of dystopian
That's
movies,
yeah.
man. All of it. And
See,
what I
and that's
realized is,
programming. I feel like that's
yeah,
programming.
it
They
is.
put it,
It
they
is programming.
put little hints in us and stuff. And you want to talk about the days. If you dig deeper into this, for anybody who hasn't listened to my show, this will be like the third episode that I talked about is the they who actually are controlling it from another planet or other beings or whatever are like super into karma. So
Mhm.
they do that. They like tell you, it's like if I told you, hey Matt, I got $1 million, but I'm not going to show it to you. Like you might laugh or be like, you're full of shit, but I told you. So it's not my
Yeah.
fault that you don't believe me. It's the same thing with these guys in this movie. Is like they super believe in karma. So they're like, hey, we're putting it in Hollywood as science fiction and stuff like that. But we told you, so it's not our fault that you didn't believe it. Like we're really doing this stuff to you, and it's really going on.
It's really real. They do disclose, and it's part of their sidestepping of karma, and they get away with it because they make it as a joke or something like that.
Or
And it's
science fiction, or
so, yeah,
entertainment.
yeah, they created a whole genre of sci-fi. Wow. And the ridicule psychology and all of it, it's very fascinating what they've been able to do to the human, psyche and the construct. And we're very easily programmed, and we're very easily like unprogrammed, and we're like almost godlike once we start resonating in truth. So this is what I think that they get us resonating with in lies, lots of lies, and that's like a backstop for like our god being. Basically, it's like if we were resonating in full truth 100%, then we'd be like creator beings, and they know that. So we have this like backstop, so that if our resonance is mucked up with like falsehoods and lies, then God would never be able to, like our creator, the universe, whatever, it would never let us rise to our fullest potential if we were resonating in lies. Then we'd just be creating crap, and it would be chaos. So I think they know that, and the more that we can weed through it and resonate to our fullest potential, learn to discern, learn to trust our gut, and rise through it all, the better. You know what I mean?
So what's next for you, Matt?
Frankenskies 2 climate chains like shackles. And there's frankenskies2.com. And I'm working on that slowly but surely. And I'm going to go to London and try to buck that, maybe get arrested or something. Who knows? Because I'm not going to do that, what they say. I'm going to say no to their thing and show the world it's messed up. I don't know what's going to happen over there, but I do have a very strong calling to go over there
Mm.
and bring my awareness and my products and stuff. And yeah, so that for sure. And then also EMF awareness and protection and whatnot. But in the spring, I'm finally gonna get Frankenskies, the first one, and get it on tour and give out a bunch of DVDs and do this kind of like West Coast kind of loop. I'm gonna do as far as Colorado. I've got a lot of contacts now, and I'm looking to do like a dozen movie screenings, at a bunch of cool little spots,
Oh
kind of
wow.
like your hip hop, but not at all.
No, that's
But
great
but
though.
in a sense, yeah. And then I can make some really cool contacts and interview some people. And I have this vision of this montage of, hi, how did you wake up to chemtrails? How did you wake up to chemtrails? And everyone's got their story, because you don't realize that everyone is awake to chemtrails, and they have the story of how they first learned about it. And I want to get different people of different walks of life in this tour. In the movie, in the first movie, I didn't really get the public as much involved as I want to this time, to show the world that we're woke. Even though those words are hijacked, we're aware, and we're here, and we're not going anywhere. And the camaraderie that the tour and the next movie will have with all that is something I'm really looking forward to. And also, please check out actualactivists.com. That's my website. That's my baby. And it's a one-stop shop for truth and all that stuff. And I'm going to put your website on there too, because you're rad. Please.
Absolutely. We're gonna put your website up here too. And then where's your first Frankenskies movie? Where can they find that at to watch?
Frankenskies.com. It's available at frankenskies.com. Also, frankenskiesthemovie.com, in case people really want to be able to look at it like that. But it links to Vimeo. It all got pulled from YouTube, sadly, but it's alive and well. And there's availability of grabbing the DVD for $3 if people dig around and try to get that from me. But it's available for free, so please watch it. And anybody, I know, look, it's a documentary, and already that's scary, and it's 80 minutes, and that's scary. Watch the first 15 minutes. You
Mm.
watch the first 15 minutes, and you'll realize that in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, they were already sharpening their tools to control the weather. So why would they stop? You know what I'm saying? It's the U.S. government. Think about it.
Right. And where can they find your EMF clothing at?
Spiro, Spero gear.com, Spiro Gear on Instagram. And yeah, take a look over there. There's a blog on there, a lot to learn. Even if you just want to check it out, it's pretty cool. It's armor, silver armor to protect from this next BS we got to deal with, sadly. But
How often do you wear it?
me, not so much, man. I'm all wired. If I go out and about, I'm cool. But like, I got wired internet. I got a pager. Like I said, my 3G phone's getting turned off. I don't have a smartphone. I got no Wi-Fi. I got a off like a landline. I got multiple landlines. So personally, I don't necessarily rock my gear too much. When I travel and I'm like on the I-5 driving my cell tower, I do. I wear it. And when I
High
don't,
five. Yeah.
yeah. And when I don't, after I'm driving by like my 10th cell tower, I can feel like this pressure in my heart because I'm sensitive to it nowadays. Um, just my life journey, whatever, I can feel it. But I try to not wear it too much because I'm not around it too much. But I do go out and about and I rock a beanie or a shirt or whatever. Also, it's important to mineralize.
Mm.
I think one of the best things. So as we end the show, I want to talk about mineralization. I take these CMOS pills. It's CMOS, bladderwrack, and burdock. I just get them on like Amazon or whatever. But it's 104 bioavailable minerals, and the CMOS is like this seaweed. And I rep it so hard, it sounds like I sell it, but I don't. It's just this bioavailable plant-based minerals, and we get these 104 bioavailable minerals from taking the bladderwrack, burdock, CMOS, um, bladderwrack, burdock, and CMOS pills. Yeah. And so they're all ground up in these pills, and it's like almost a coffee replacement. But when you're not mineral deficient, meaning
Mm.
you're up to speed on your minerals and you're like eating healthily, you're not absorbing toxins from your
Mm.
environment. So if you're like really needing certain minerals, your body will be like, oh, I'll just start absorbing everything I can get my hands on. And then you start getting crap from like the air or something that like chemtrails or whatever that you don't need. And so being around EMF and all that sort of stuff, it depletes your body, especially with zinc. And then a lot of people have zinc deficiencies and then they get sick, and that's just from being around EMF. So get up to speed on your zinc. I recommend minerals because of that. And then you won't be subject to all this stuff, and then you can like rise to your fullest potential. And don't forget that all these reasons why you're under attack is not because you get to be a victim, it's because you get to rise above it and claim your sovereignty and show the way for the next generation.
That's huge. What I had something that just popped up with you talking about that. Have you ever heard of Morgellons disease?
Yeah, I interviewed Clifford Carnicom. I went to Arizona and hosted this huge conference to stop Bill Gates from doing this experiment to dim the sun. I got arrested at the conference, and we stopped Bill Gates from dimming the sun. This huge experiment down there. We had a conference, a protest, a concert. There's this rapper Homage.
Mm-hmm.
He's really cool.
Yeah.
He came down, and Clifford Carnicom is like the main researcher on the Morgellons disease, and it was first deemed by psychiatrics as a total mental case and that it wasn't real. And then all of a sudden, recently, they flipped the script and said, no, it's not all in your head. It's a symptom of Lyme's.
Mm.
So now the official take is that it's a symptom of Lyme's, and it's just like fibers growing out of your skin, and it's really weird and scary. And I think if you own your like spiritual path and your health and all that stuff, none of that scary stuff is going to happen to you because you're on a higher vibration like frequency than where that even exists.
Mm-hmm.
I it does exist. Is it in the chemtrails? Maybe. Is it in like GMO food and weird stuff like that? Maybe so. I
Mm-hmm.
think it might be a product of like all of it together, like GMO foods and it is weird, and I don't really know. And I was considering doing a big thing in my movie about it, but
Mm-hmm.
because it's so like kind of fear based and whatever, I don't even know if I'll mention it. But it is real, and I do table it, and people have reached out to me, and it's very important to have a strict. If you do have it going on, if you do have it going on, you have to have a very, very, very strict alkaline diet. You got
Mm.
to drop the coffee. You can't drink anymore, and all these sort of things. So there are ways to mitigate anything we ever deal with. Anything. I mean, you name
And
it. I don't.
that's the problem
I
with
don't
these
care.
big operations
Yeah.
like this, like 5G and like spraying the skies and stuff like that, is like they put so much funding and backing into these big juggernauts to make it happen, but
Mhm.
there's little to no research on like side effects of this stuff. So you get
Yeah.
stuff
No
like
kidding.
Morgellons disease that happens, and then people just write it off as like psychotic episodes. You know what I mean? Because there's no scientists or doctors being paid to like really look into this stuff and see what's really going on.
No, man. They'll pay to like get you chemoed out and like not. I mean, there's so many things we could just do a whole show on all that nonsense. I mean, dude, not to go on a crazy tangent, but a few years ago, I was able to look up Coca-Cola like is bad for you
Hmm.
and find that like Coca-Cola can like obliterate a penny over a few days and like
Hmm.
science experiments, right? So I do this like daily truth blog on my website, Actual Activist, and I wanted to talk smack about Coca-Cola and the
Hmm.
same search terms that I used to type in Coca-Cola bad for you. I literally did it again, same as I used to, and it's Coca-Cola funded science, bro,
Mm.
are the top
White
search
papers.
terms, top Google search terms. Like no one's going to go and click next and go to the next page. Literally, these were research studies funded by Coca-Cola saying that Coca-Cola is more hydrating than water because their human trials, the people, when they drank the water, they urinated the water out, but when they drank the Coca-Cola, they
It
urinated less
stayed.
fluid. Yeah. So
Mm.
there it's more hydrating. It stayed. You're funny, bro. I can tell like very little bits about people when I do their shows, but I can tell your sense of humor just from like little things like that and the idiocracy quote. But you're cool and I love you and I appreciate that you do what you do. And I hope that you keep doing it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, dude. That really, from people like you, that really means a lot. That reminds me, that Coca-Cola research reminds me of like the DuPont conspiracy and the dark waters
Yeah.
and stuff.
Like,
They
of
did
course you can
research,
drink it.
right? Yeah, they, oh yeah, C8's actually good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. But hey, man, I want to thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we can get you back on the show and we can talk about some other stuff like that, like more Morgellons, and go deeper into 5G and maybe your EMF clothing and stuff. Like those could all be episodes in themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
I look
Cool.
forward to
I would
that.
love to have come back. And on a really personal note, I was having like a really rough day, and I even leading up to the show, I was having a really rough day. And then meeting you was cool because you're Robbie Diesel and you're not some fake ass. So I appreciate you, bro. So thank you very much. You really made my week, bro. Like for real. So thank you.
That means a lot, bro. Seriously, I'm glad that I can do that. And thank you for making my show better, me better personally with the knowledge, and everybody else who's willing to listen.